We are back with another review from Mike Giannotto in Pro Feedback. This is a hybrid trailer track from one of our members, Benjamin Cohen. And I'm going to basically hit play on this. I want us to listen to the entire thing through. And I'm basically going to toss the review over to Mike, because Mike is if you guys don't know, he's a library owner and a composer himself, and he's done a lot of orchestral trailer work in his career. So he's definitely one of the experts we have on board that can steer you guys in the right direction. So hopefully, Benjamin, you're going to get some helpful notes today. And if any of you guys are into orchestral trailer stuff, you can learn something from Benjamin. And by the way, Benjamin and all the other members that are brave enough and courageous enough to put your music out there and allow us to listen to it here publicly. Thank you guys. Like that's not easy to do. That's a really, really tough thing to do, and to just kind of expose yourself that way. But it really is beneficial. I hope that the notes that you guys get in these videos are helpful. And of course, this is really sort of a community-wide beneficial program, because everybody gets to see and learn not only from your guys' successes, but also from your mistakes. And hopefully we are pointing everybody in a more profitable direction in their sync licensing music. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this track. Here we go. Very cool track, Benjamin. So dark, intense, and I really like towards the end of it how the instrumentation really came in, and with that really heavy beat coming in, like it just was a very enjoyable track, essentially. Just especially towards the end, I really like how it crescendoed and created this amazing, just like scenery. I could visualize an entire scenery with what you were doing there. So excellent work there. We definitely will be able to point out some things that'll help you, I think, make your track much more licensable. But definitely you're going in a good direction here, because this is certainly something that can get placed all day long. Sports, maybe even reality shows, promos, commercials. There's a lot of stuff that can use, and obviously trailers is probably where you're trying to go here. So there's a lot of different uses and video games for this type of music. So Mike, why don't we just jump in with what were your first initial impressions of this one?
Yeah, so this is incredible. I really like this track a lot. I like everything that's going on with it. Like the mood, I like how it feels. There are different things I think that, where this track can go. It sets up for anything moody from, any kind of like sort of a dark trailer for a TV show or anything drama related. But then it also has that sort of like beat oriented section, a little bit of rock in there too, like toward the end, that can set this up for stuff like action movies, like stuff like Fast and Furious, that kind of thing, as well. So a lot of different sort of I can see a lot of different uses in cinematic and theatrical sort of advertising with this kind of track. That's basically trailers and TV promos. So I can see this also, like sports is great, like sports highlights. This and especially. What's interesting is this is something that you don't normally see much on TV, but I could actually see this working well as sort of like an intro or like sort of a coming out sort of track for teams when they come out on the field or on the court and stuff like that too. So I've done a few jobs like that in the past, and they definitely go to licensing libraries and also music houses for material as well.
Totally. And one thing, this is actually very similar to the previous track Mike and I reviewed here on the channel. This one for me, it sounds again like it is whispering out a scream. Like it's trying to be this big, huge, intense track, but volume-wise, it's very quiet. It's very much on the quiet side, and also the impact of this track isn't really punching through. Was that something you also felt too, Mike?
Yes. So if I can get a little bit into the structure of this track, so I think a lot of that has to do with both structure and production. So the way this, I can tell like the sort of approach with this is trying to go for that sort of slow burn type of build. But in this particular case, there's too many sort of builds. It almost sounds like it's going from build to build to build to build, and then finally by like almost like 2 minutes in, like toward the end, when you have your chord progression and your changes and stuff like that, that's fine. That's where I think that the track finally drops. I think if we can move that, earlier, and combine, like, so for instance, I think there's a part like between, I want to say like 120 and 150, I think right before like you do that big downer. There's that section, and then you do that huge like sort of downer, and then it goes into another build where it's like you have those short strings going. You might be able to combine those two sections, move that downer to after the short strings, and then have your drop be when your beats come in. And then instead of like it's just being the beats that you introduce with like the guitar chugs or whatever, introduce all of it. Like beats come in, your big chord progression, and you might even be able to double your chord progressions with like brass, to make it sound even more intense. And then you have that entire section, maybe, a minute long or so, where you can just kind of ride that chord progression out and then expand upon that, add a big melody, add, bigger hits or something like that, or like do like, so you have this cool like edit right before that section too, where you have this like sort of like glitchy, like chopped up fill. That's pretty cool. And I think that that's something you can do like, again, later on in the middle of that section where you have like, you can go with like your big chord progression, do that little, for like maybe 8 bars or so, do that choppy like hit or whatever, and then have it come back again. It'll sound harder with everything coming back, but plus if you add another layer, like like another melody, something epic, that would be really cool too. One thing I will say that could really, really up the intensity on this is if you can get a rapper to like do just a phrase, just a little hook, like off of that like ending part, like extend that ending part and get like, just it doesn't even have to be like lyrics, like rap lyrics. It's, just think of it like a hype man, really. If you can get that, and I think this will push it over the edge, then you can definitely solidify this in sports, definitely solidify it in like the Fast and Furious type trailers, or action movie trailers, that kind of thing. And, I think that's something that you can consider.
That's a great point, and I actually didn't even think about that. That throwing vocals on this is totally the last thing I ever probably would have suggested. So it's really cool that you went there, and it's definitely something I'm seeing with a lot of libraries now, where they're having full-on tracks that are primarily instrumental, but there'll be a little tag on it. It's not lyrics; it's just one thing. It'll say something like "I'm gonna get mine" or "I'm about to come up" or whatever it's gonna say. It's just a one little phrase, and it's just on the hooks, and it's got this cool little melody to it, or maybe not. It's just rapped out, like you said. But that one little thing turns it into a jingle, turns it into a theme, turns it into whatever it needs to be. And I definitely think it's such a easy, quick thing to throw onto your track to like basically make it so much more licensable, because you don't have to work really with a vocalist doing that. That's just such a one-time easy thing. You can literally pay somebody online to record it for you and send you over the file, and you just sort of put it in where it needs to go. No writing lyrics, no worrying about melodyning or getting the melody right or any of that kind of stuff. It's such a quick thing. So absolutely, that is like solid gold advice there. And I would definitely echo you on the sort of structure of the track. It definitely felt like it was kind of meandering a bit in the beginning, just not really getting into it. It wasn't until the very end of the track that I was like, oh, okay, now we're somewhere. I didn't really feel like the rest of it was just kind of like teasing at music. It wasn't even really musical yet. It just was sort of slowly trudging along. So this to me, as a track, feels like demo. It feels like it's the start, and there needs to be a lot more production on top of this to make it licensable, and definitely probably messing with the structure, as Mike said. So I think though I think you would agree, Mike, the instruments, the drums, things were sounding pretty good. I mean, I think maybe you can talk more about the drums at the end. I felt like those could be a little bit more impactful and big. What do you think overall on the instruments of this track?
Yeah, I think so. As far as a mix, instrumentation, I think is great. I think the instruments work with each other and they blend with each other nicely, which is good. I think it's just in the terms of like sort of the mix. Basically, I get it, like when you're bringing in these, especially like the beats at the end, like when you're mixing in with orchestral stuff, it can get a little tricky because beats have a different type of sort of mastering to it. They're just inherently more compressed. They hit harder. So there's this tendency to where your orchestral intro, let's say, you would want it to be very, very, very quiet, and then your beats come in, then all of a sudden the level just jumps up like crazy. You can find a way to level it all out and just trust that, like, when the beats come in, just the pure intensity of the way they sound is gonna up like sort of the impact already on its own without necessarily needing to make it all louder at the end. So because what's kind of happening, which is what I'm kind of seeing here, is that loud ending is hitting your limiter in a way that's preventing the entire track from being loud. So if you can bring that down a little bit closer to where you have like your other parts in the track, get a little bit more balance that way. I think you have all the sounds there. As far as mixing and stuff like that, again, like this, I don't know if this is my trick or this is just something I like to use all the time. I feel like I say this all the time. You definitely play with the soft clippers. One trick that you can do, especially like with trailer music, to get it as loud, like trailer music is like, it's like modern EDM, where it's like they push levels up to like, -6, -5, -4, like LUFS sometimes. I know in sync we'd like to say like, okay, shoot for like -9, -10, that's good, but like for trailer music, being that it likes to get these really loud levels, what I like to do is put like a little bit of the soft clipper on each stem. Not every single individual part, but like each group that you have. So one on the drums, one on your bass, one in your brass, one on synth and strings, so forth. And use the same setting all across. And what I'd like to do is just try to take the loudest one and just chop off the peaks by like 2 dB, and then copy that same setting all the way through your other groups. When that'll create like a certain amount of headroom before hitting your limiter, and you'll hear that like it doesn't sound, if you do it right and you're not doing it too much, it won't sound crushed, but all of a sudden you'll gain like another maybe 5-6 dB that you can push into your limiter. So then you can up the gain even more into your limiter. It'll sound louder. It'll sound a little bit more open. Or it'll still just stay as open and won't sound smashed. And that's a way to really get this sounding like really big and impactful, especially that third act of yours.
That's a great tip. I'm actually going to start using it. I've never done that in terms of like soft clipping all the groups and then pushing them out there. And then, yeah, it totally makes sense though to kind of almost clean up the fat here so that when you push it onto the master bus, you've got a little bit more room. Everything's been cleaned up a little bit essentially. So that's a great tip, man. So Benjamin, I hope you find these tips helpful. Trailer music is super competitive. It is a really, really competitive. It's a very intense style of music to get into producing. And this is why I've always told people, if you want to get into trailer music, jump in with both feet. Like trailer's got to be your life. You got to live and breathe it. Trailer is not a genre that you just can go dabble. I need to go do something. Let me go make a trailer album. I guarantee you, if you've not been doing trailer music, it is going to take you a long time to create, because there's so much. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't sound like a lot is happening, but there's a lot of automation and modulation, and you really have to kind of hone your production skills in a way that you really don't have to with a lot of other styles of music. So it's a really intense style of genre music to get into. So just make sure, for everybody that's watching here, if you want to get into trailer music, jump all the way in. If you're kind of, well, I'm kind of interested in it, I wouldn't worry so much about it. It's not something that you're going to be able to dabble so much in. You can certainly go listen to a lot of trailer music and bring some of those elements into your genres. That's a really good idea. But I always just want to make sure people are clear, at least on my point of view on trailer music. It is a really tall order to be able to be competitive in this side of the business. And I wish you all the best, Benjamin, if that's what you're going to do. So that's what we got for you guys today. Thank you so much, Mike, for your time. And if you guys want to get feedback like this, you guys know how to find us in Pro Feedback. There's a link in the description box below. You can learn more about the membership and how you can get somebody like Mike or myself to check out your track next.